Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres Podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for.
I said, I'm just warning you. I think LSU is going to beat Ole Miss, and I think we're going to talk about it, and I think I am going to be insufferable about my king, Brian Kelly, because I have told you for years I think Brian Kelly is underrated. I have told you for years I think this guy is one of the better coaches in college football that never gets credit for it. And now, after beating a top 10 LSU team at home, just be warned. If you thought Torres was bad before, you ain't seen nothing yet. I do want to talk about this game, though, as LSU gets the first, I think, really big win of the Brian Kelly era, 45-20 in Baton Rouge. What's interesting about this, it really didn't start out the way I anticipated. I mean, I picked LSU to win. I picked LSU to cover the 2.5 points. It did not start out great. Ole Miss actually jumped out to a 17-0 lead. Ole Miss was up 17-0, but to LSU's credit, this is who they've been all year. They've fallen behind. I thought Brody Miller, who covers the team for The Athletic, brought up a great point. Brian Kelly emphasized conditioning when he got to LSU, and it has shown up. They fell down 17-0 a few weeks ago to Auburn. They fell behind to Florida State and rallied. They did not win that game, but you know, they were a missed extra point away from going to overtime or whatever. And so I bring it up because this was another game where they fell behind and just started chipping away. Trailed 20-17 at halftime after being down 17-0. By the end of the third quarter, it was 24-20. And then by the end of the fourth quarter, it was a blowout, 45-20, the final score. With the victory, LSU now 6-2, 4-1 in the SEC. And I'm just going to tell you, this program is very much ahead of schedule in the Brian Kelly rebuild. And I know what people will say, Torres, it's LSU. They recruited such a good level. It's never a rebuild at LSU. Yeah, but except in this case, it really is a rebuild at LSU. For people who forget how messed up the situation was at LSU, go back to last year. Go back to the final time that we saw LSU on the field last season. Now, remember, went 6-6 in the regular season, 3-5 in the SEC. But go to their bowl game against Kansas State in early January. In that game, do you remember LSU finished that game, played that game, with like 38 scholarship players in their bowl game. Remember, we allow 85 scholarships in FBS football. LSU was in the high 30s, low 40s in terms of available bodies. Now, some of it was injuries, some of it was opt-outs, some of it was NFL guys, some of it was transfers. But at the end of the day, Brian Kelly inherited a situation where he had 38 players that were healthy enough to play in a bowl game. And so that was his starting point. That was his baseline. And here is what he has done since. First of all, he goes in the portal, has to sign 20 plus players. That's important. But what is important to note is even after going into the portal, even after doing a really good job identifying talent, keep this in mind. LSU is still well below the scholarship limit. Now, I'm not a LSU scholarship expert. Again, there are people that cover this team day in and day out that could speak to how many scholarship players they have available. But I've been told it's somewhere in the mid-70s. So we're starting at a baseline where LSU is probably about 10 scholarship players down from the rest of the competition, from the rest of the SEC. They went into, not really just last night on Saturday, but all season long. They're starting a quarterback that it is worth noting is getting better every week. Credit to Brian Kelly. 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year at Arizona State. So Jaden Daniels may turn into an all-SEC quarterback when it's done, but that was not who he was when he arrived. They are also currently playing 2 freshmen at the offensive tackle spots, which to me is really tough. Brian Kelly said he had never seen it anywhere, let alone in the SEC. And they lost their best edge rusher, maybe their best defensive player, Mason Smith, in week 1. And so the idea that people want to say this isn't really a rebuild, yeah, it is. Started with 38 scholarship players. Even by the time fall camp hit, even after the portal, even after National Signing Day last year, he was at like 75. And he's without his best defensive lineman, 2 freshman tackles, starting quarterback who struggled in the Pac-12 last year. This is a rebuild, and it is ahead of schedule because, as I said, last year, finished the year 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC. Well, here's the crazy part. They are now currently, you don't want to give Brian Kelly credit for anything. They've already matched the win total from last year at 6-2. They've already surpassed their SEC win total. And oh, by the way, I don't know how many people know this. I know an LSU fan listening knows this. You know they control their own destiny in the SEC title chase. It sounds crazy. It's the truth. If they beat Alabama, they will go to it. Well, they won't go to Atlanta, but they went out. They're going to Atlanta. So that speaks to where this program is right now. And it speaks to something I have told you for years. Brian Kelly's a great football coach. And I'll be honest, look, there are certain things in life that I understand. And there are certain things in life I don't understand. And I have never understood why Brian Kelly has gotten so much crap as a major college football coach. Now, part of it, I know he's not great in front of the cameras. I know he's not great with PR. By the way, who is? Lincoln Riley. I live in LA. He's quiet. He doesn't really say anything interesting. Nick Saban gives you nothing. Kirby Smart gives you nothing. Ryan Day, I can't think of an interesting thing Ryan Day has ever said. Jim Harbaugh is kind of a different cat, to say the least. So, like, yeah, Brian Kelly's not good in front of the camera. He says weird stuff. Who cares? I don't care. You know what I care about? Wins and losses. And all this guy has ever done is win games. Go back, first of all, Grand Valley State wins national championships at the D2 level. Goes to Central Michigan, wins there. Goes to Cincinnati, and I've said it many times. I was at UConn when he went to Cincinnati, elevated that program. Goes to Notre Dame, and in the modern era, I was told Notre Dame football can't win at the highest level. No, they did not win a national championship under Brian Kelly, but here were his last 5 years at Notre Dame, okay? These were his last 5 years, or last 4 years. 12-1, 11-2, 10-2, 11-1. And so here are the two big criticisms. He's weird in front of the camera, not super smooth. You know, he said, I don't believe in execution because I want to execute my players, or whatever he said the family thing, dance with recruits. I don't care. He wins on the field. And the other criticism is he doesn't beat Alabama and Clemson. Like that is the knock on Brian Kelly. That is the knock. Oh, he doesn't beat Alabama and Clemson. Last 4 years, 10-2, 11-1, or 12-1, 11-2, 10-2, 11-1. That is a great 4-year run, and that is an incredible 4-year run at Notre Dame. And I've said this for years, and I'm going to keep saying it. I understand that you grew up, your grandparents, whoever watched Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has always been like a super important part of the college football ecosystem. But I will also tell you, there's no reason that program should be competing at the highest level. Like the criticism, oh, is it Notre Dame? They're always overrated. No, they're properly rated. I don't think anybody thought in any of the games that he played against Alabama, against Clemson, that they were going to win. Maybe the game after they beat Clemson, when Trevor Lawrence came back, people said maybe this is the year they beat him. I think they went into both college football playoffs as double-digit underdogs. So it's not like, oh, they're overrated. No, they're exactly who we thought they would be. They literally beat everybody they're supposed to, and they can't beat Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia. And if that's the criteria we're holding people to, there aren't very many good coaches in college football, I'll tell you that. But this guy won at Notre Dame at the highest level, did it in an era where it's so hard to win at Notre Dame. Cold weather school, Catholic school, no natural recruiting base, real academic standards. And all this guy did was win 10, 11, 12 games his last 4 or 5 years. And I told you when he got to LSU, I said, I can't guarantee anything, but he's won at Grand Valley State. He's won at Central Michigan. He's won at Cincinnati. He's won at Notre Dame. I think he's going to win at LSU, which is exactly what we're seeing. And what I would say is I kind of wrap this up. I'm just going to tell you a couple things really stand out. One, first of all, I just want to give the guy credit, okay? Because listen, I never bought into the whole Lincoln Riley is afraid of the SEC narrative, but I do think there's an element of why Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for USC is because he said the Oklahoma job is going to be much tougher in the SEC than it was in the Big 12. And so why I bring it up as it pertains to Brian Kelly is because he didn't run away from any challenge. He could have stayed at Notre Dame, retired. They would have built him a statue. He ran towards the challenge. He wanted the challenge of seeing if he could compete with the best. And maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe this is the high point of his time at LSU today, right now, after the win against Ole Miss. But he wasn't afraid of that challenge. And I respect the hell out of that. I respect the hell out of the fact that he could have stayed at Notre Dame forever. And he said, I want to see how I stack up. I want to see how when I have a full playing deck, I want to see how I stack up against Kirby and Saban and whoever else in the SEC. So I give him credit for that. Remember, he did it after Oklahoma and Texas went too. So that's one. And two, I'll just tell you, I think this is the start of something. Now, listen, they can win the SEC West. They could win the SEC this year. I don't know that we're there yet. I don't think that we're really there yet. And listen, the schedule does get pretty tough even after the bye. Host Alabama, at Arkansas, UAB, at Texas A&M. And so they're 6-2 right now. They could finish 7-5. I don't think they will, but they could. But I bring it up to say, one, we're sitting here on October 22nd, going into Halloween weekend. And LSU, of all teams, controls its own destiny in the SEC West. So does Alabama. So does I don't know about Ole Miss, actually. LSU controls its own destiny in the SEC West. And they beat Alabama. They could go to Atlanta. Not saying they will, but they could. But you look at this team with 2 freshmen starting offensive tackles, with a transfer quarterback. Here's the scary part. Brian Kelly's 6-2 right now. If they're probably looking at 8-4 in year one with all the chaos, imagine what this guy's going to be like in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years. I think he's going to build the power. And I'm telling you right now, I'm planting the flag. I think he's going to be the 4th straight coach after Nick Saban, after Les Miles, after Ed Orgeron. I believe he's going to win a national championship before it's all said and done.